What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Hooligans. Please hit that like button. The more likes we get in a short period of time, the more people the algorithm will bring into the chat to come and hang out with us and see what's going on. So please hit that like button. Let me know how you're doing, and happy freedom. Well, I'm going to disappoint you guys right up front. We're not going to talk about the Grammys. I know you guys want to talk about the Grammys because I see everybody on Twitter talking about the Grammys. And it was all satanic and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But we already knew that, so we're not going to cover it because who cares about the Grammys? Ain't that right, hooligans? Appreciate you guys being here. What's up, Proud Ankle? What's up, Great MAGA King? What's up, Tim Mack? What's up, Matthew? What's up, Hannah? What's up, Free Minder? What's up, Lee? What's up, USA Forever? What's up, Adrian? Happy Freedom. What's up, Cheeky Chops? What's up, MD? What's up, Sleuthy TV? What's up, Sean T? What's up, Kevin? What's up, AJ? What is up, everyone? I appreciate all you guys being here. I noticed that neither channel that we're live on right now is being shadow banned. Did they slip up today or what? Where's all that censorship we're used to? I can't believe all these hooligans got notifications. It's amazing. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much, Lisa, for continuing the membership program for 25 months. You're officially a hooligan. I appreciate you. Thank you. All right. Let's see, we're going to be moving forward here. My goodness. Thank you so much, F-Body Bill, for continuing the membership program for 11 months. You're officially a hooligan. I appreciate you. Thank you. What's up, Sarge? What's up, Jock Stello? What's up, Robert? Happy freedom, you guys. All right, let's make sure everything else is running, and we will get her started. We have an eventful day today. What's up, High Plains Drifter? What's up, Shadow? What's up, everyone on the JeffMAC Live YouTube channel? What's up, everyone on Twitch? What's up, Nefties? What's up, Sam? Happy freedom. I hate those Hollywood Satanists. Yeah, it's goofy. You know, watching a bunch of celebrities give other celebrities awards. Stupid. So stupid. Especially because, like, well, I don't watch any of their nonsense. I pretty much only watch anime or, like, old TV. Anything to pull my brain out of the world we live in. What's up, Joe? What's up, Rasta? Happy freedom. What's up, everyone on Rumble? What's up, Anthony? What's up, Donna Sparks? What's up, Donna? Happy freedom. Donna Sparks, I got your cat crack in the mail yesterday. I really appreciate you sending that to me. I'm going to make a video of Klaus Daniels losing his marbles. I'm sure he's going to really enjoy that. So thank you for sending it. I appreciate it. So the only thing that kills me about the website on jeffmaclive.com is the login takes forever. Takes forever. I don't know why. Sam, I appreciate you watching on the website. I don't know why more people don't watch on the website. It is the only place on earth where you're not being censored. So today at 2 o'clock we got Hyena Harris hosting a Central American Forward launch event. I don't know if that's titled correctly, but that's what the White House said. I doubt we're going to end up watching the whole thing. It depends, because at 2:15 we got KJP doing the White House briefing. The press briefing, I'm sure, is going to be a real highlight. She hasn't been on since the balloon was shot out of the sky, and then the earthquakes, and then the Grammys, and then we haven't seen Peter the last 2 times, so hopefully Peter will be there. I'm hoping for a rage quit today. That's what I'm hoping for. So about 2:15 Eastern time, which is in 30 minutes. That's supposed to start. So I imagine we're going to pop onto the live with Hyena Harris, and we're just going to bide our time until KJP gets on stage, and we'll just swap over, even if Hyena Harris isn't done cackling and slurring her words and staggering around on stage like poor little drug addict. Anyways, before we get to those lives, we will be covering a video titled Ginrich or somebody. Nobody will believe any of this, and this video is discussing how even Democrats don't like old man Walter. I thought that would be humorous. A lot of this came from Snooks. I appreciate you, Snooks, for helping me out. Then we're going to be covering a video titled Multiple Major Earthquakes Kill More Than 1,000 People Across Turkey and Syria. Then we're going to go through a few tweets that are relating to the earthquakes and how it's affecting other areas. And then we're going to cover a video titled Earthquake That Shook Buffalo is the Strongest to Hit New York Since 2002, which is a continuation of the whole earthquake thing going on. That stuff is kind of extensive. They're talking about it like shifting the plates and stuff like that because it was so big that we might end up with new continents. Who knows? Life. Wouldn't be surprised. Anyways, then we're going to be covering a video that's a part of an article titled Massive Fire Breaks Out in Chicago Heights Factory, which there's a lot of speculation around that, but we will get into that. Then we're going to be wrapping up with a short video that was tweeted out titled Urgent Calls to Evacuate After Massive Train Derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. I have never heard of that. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but I know there was a Palestine in Ohio, so I'm like kind of confused by that. But anyways, reports on officials warning of possible major explosion. So we will be getting in all of that today. I'm going to read through the chat really quick and we will get started with our first video. Happy Free Mink Scars, thanks for being here. What's up, South Yank? And welcome to the live. Robert, the movie Warriors is free on YouTube. I will have to check that out. Anything to pull my brain out of the news. I'm gonna end up burning myself out. I can already tell. I was awake when the earthquake hit yesterday. I was awake till like 5 o'clock this morning, and then I woke up at 9. I don't know why, but that's you know the way things have been going. So yeah, I'm gonna end up burning myself out. I need to back off of the news and watch some funny good stuff. Anyways, thank you so much, Lisa, for that $20 donation on YouTube. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Big fella. This twink is out of his mind if he thinks the American people believe his BS. I pretty much don't believe anything on the internet at this point. Like, I was seeing videos coming out about a massive earthquake in Kenya that may split Africa in half and how it was related to what just happened in Turkey and all this stuff. And I seen it all circulating, but thank God I can read. So I went and researched it and realized that that video was from like 2017 or something like that. It was from long ago. It's not recent at all. It's like everything is propaganda or fudged information. I don't want to say misinformation because that's communism talk. But just inaccurate information implied with purpose of tricking you. We'll say that. Miss Jamie, so was I till about 3:30. Was watching it live about the earthquake, people trapped in buildings. Yeah, stuff was crazy. Shanti's, it's a full moon. Yeah. That makes sense. All right, hooligans, drop some ones and some coffees in the chat if you're ready to get this video started. Shadow, new fence going around the Capitol. Why? It's a good question. I actually posted a document in Gilded last night, probably at like 1 o'clock in the morning, God only knows. But there's a lot of people talking about this document. Talking about a transition of power, presidentially speaking. And so a lot of people are speculating, what does that mean and whatnot? And I'm not going to cover it here because you guys need to join Gilded. So if you go to Gilded, you'll see the article I'm talking about. I took screenshots, I have links and all kinds of stuff, but I want everybody to read and think for themselves because there's a lot of propaganda going around telling people wishful things. Lots of conspiracy thinking going on, and it's more worthwhile to keep track of the information passing around than to believe others and, you know, fly off the handle and spread a bunch of nonsense. So If you're part of Gilded, you've probably seen it last night. Otherwise, I'll repost it on the announcement board so you guys can go check it out. It is an official document, but I don't know what its purpose is. So that's up to you guys to figure out. Sam, I got you open in 3 tabs. Odyssey seems to be ahead of YouTube, and YouTube is ahead of JeffMAC Live. Thank you for letting me know, because I have no way of being able to check that stuff. So I appreciate the feedback. I don't have control over that stuff, but I appreciate knowing it. Seeing the coffees and the ones. It's time to get her started, Hooligans. But first, thank you so much, the Oak Enclave, for that $2 donation on YouTube. I appreciate you. Thank you. Let's see. I recommend Father Knows Best, funny, wholesome TV. I will look into that. I appreciate the suggestion. All right, let's get her started. We're going to try it again with volume.
Do you want him to run again? I mean, you saw our poll. We have a large number of Democrats say they don't want him to run again.
He is an absolutely historically successful president, and I want to see that continue.
He is. White House officials defending the, quote, accomplishments Biden is expected to promote in tomorrow's State of the Union, as a new poll from Washington Post ABC reveals most Democrats, 6 in 10, don't even want Joe Biden as their nominee in 2024. Joining us now, Fox News contributor and author of Defeating Big Government Socialism, Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for being here. What do you anticipate from the State of the Union? Will this be a list of his framing of his accomplishments as a precursor to running again, even though his party doesn't want him to?
Well, I think he almost has to go through that, because what happens is everybody in the executive branch submits their goodies, and the president keeps piling them up. And after a while, the speech gets to be very long and sort of very boring. And then he'll probably have some rhetorical talk about a better future, and in between, he'll attack Trump and the MAGA Republicans. That's my guess. Now, I mean, one of the key questions is going to be, is he willing to talk about cutting spending? You know he's going to appeal for a clean debt ceiling. That's his current position. But I think, frankly, it's likely to be a fairly boring speech, and I think it reflects the gradual decline of the Democratic Party. Myra Miller of the Winston Groups pointed out there are like 6.5 million fewer Democrats today than in 2018. And they had the lowest turnout in, I think, 20 elections among Democrats in 2022. So there are a lot of people drifting away from the Biden Democratic Party, and I think a lot of Democrats know that.
And what you would need, therefore, is enthusiasm, which is precisely something Joe Biden does not have. Mr. Speaker, a lot of the issues you just talked about are on the lips of voters. We had a panel of voters on Fox and Friends Weekend yesterday on Sunday. Here's a portion of what those voters shared with us. Watch.
Where did all the billions of dollars go that we sent to schools? I want to see concrete examples of how we're going to
she's got the crazy eyes.
Children's mental health and well-being back to thriving and prosperous.
I think people are really afraid of the future.
Whether it's spy balloons flying over the country, the border, or paying other countries to do jobs that we can do here at home.
I can't afford to pay rent. I can't afford to buy food. I can't afford car fare.
I think he's a failure. I think he's incompetent, and I'm not expecting anything tomorrow or on Tuesday that he's going to say anything that's relevant.
Yeah, that's the question. Will there be anything relevant that's touching people's lives, whether it's crime, whether it's the border, whether it's drugs, whether it's inflation? Is he going to go at those topics where he's got real vulnerabilities?
Yeah, no, there'll be things relevant, and they'll all be lies. He'll say, you're really better off. I've really defeated inflation. The deficit's really down dramatically. We're really controlling the border. I mean, nobody's going to believe any of that stuff. He's going to proudly announce that having allowed the Chinese spy balloon to go all the way across the country and complete its mission, they finally shot it down off South Carolina only after it had been across the entire country. I mean, this is a very weak administration whose primary strength is the news media and who keeps telling us things that simply aren't true. So I'm assuming that the State of the Union will be a collection of untruths bound together by Democrats desperately cheering in the House and Senate membership. But I think Republicans ought to feel like stay focused on solving real problems, insist on energy independence, do what it takes to close the border and control it, remind people of how much fentanyl is coming in, how many people are dying because of the Biden open border policy. I think the contrast is going to be pretty stark.
Yeah, they'll spin it just like Afghanistan. Not a failure. The biggest airlift in American history will be the type of spin they put on it. Right. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the new governor of Arkansas, will have a chance to respond, and that'll be interesting to see. Speaker Gingrich, thank you very much.
I think she'll do very well.
I agree. Appreciate it.
All right. Snooks. Let's see. I'm hearing background talking, but it's not from me. I have no idea because it is absolutely silent at my house. So if you're hearing other sounds, I am not sure what that is. I don't think it's coming from my end. Miss Jamie, are you going to stream the union address tomorrow? I'm going to try. I think it's supposed to be at 9 in the morning. I'm going to try. We'll just say that. I'm not going to explain a whole lot of things, but I will try. I will do my best. All right, moving forward, we're going to cover another video. It's just under 2 minutes long. It's titled, Multiple Major Earthquakes Kill More Than 1,000 People Across Turkey and Syria. Then I'm going to be checking on the White House Live because Hyena Harris is supposed to be starting in 3 minutes, but, you know, chances are she won't be on time. They'll have to go pull her out of the bathroom with 4 other dudes. Anyways. Miss Jamie, I thought it was early evening. Oh, I don't know. I think somebody told me it was 9 in the morning tomorrow. If it's in the evening, we will definitely cover it. I don't know if you can see the bags I'm carrying. I just don't know that I'll be awake at 9 a.m. It depends when I go to sleep. I have a hard time going to sleep because at night there's nobody texting me and needing things from me and requiring me to go do stuff. And so I get to do all this work that's undisturbed, and I'm one of those people that like get in flow. And I'll work 4, 5, 6 hours and not even feel it. I won't even realize that that's happening. I will sit right here at the desk and go ham. And at nighttime, it's a lot easier than in the daytime. So, I don't know. Snooks. Oh, it's in the afternoon. Okay. Yeah, I thought you told me it was 9 in the morning, and I was like, oh my goodness. No, we'll definitely be able to cover it. If it's 9 at night, we will be able to cover it. What's up, Mr. Beansy Beans? All right, we're gonna get this started. So this is, like I said, just under 2 minutes. This is going to be talking about the huge earthquake that happened last night.
This is out of Turkey. We have some developing news. This is out of Turkey, and as you can see, there were 2 massive earthquakes that unfortunately have impacted not only Turkey but also Syria. And this is just some new video into our newsroom of a building collapsing. Right now, more than 1,000 people have been killed, and about 5,300 people have been wounded here. And this happened near the border of not only Turkey but also Syria as well. Turkey's president announced this morning that a number of countries have also aided, in the aftermath here as well. But again, 2 major earthquakes less than 12 hours apart, more than a 7-point magnitude. We're really concerned about, unfortunately, a number of the aftershocks that have happened here, and a lot of people, unfortunately, still buried in the rubble.
And that first 7.8 occurred in the middle of the night when everyone was sleeping. We've had several aftershocks before that second 7-point 0 or greater magnitude earthquake. So the whole region has literally been shaking for hours. So scary to see all these building collapses. And of course, we do expect that we'll probably have more aftershocks because now we've sustained a second very large earthquake within 12 hours.
Yeah, it's Turkey's president this morning now saying that this was the country's largest disaster since 1939 there. So, of course, you know, our hearts go out to the folks over in Turkey as well as Syria.
I'm Amy Freeze. Welcome to Fox Weather.
That stuff would be terrible. Seeing those buildings come down remind me of being a young lad and seeing 9/11. I was in 7th grade. Remember sitting in my homeroom when they turned the TVs on and all you were seeing was the buildings fall. That's what it makes me think of. I'm sure that was a terrifying event. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going through a very hard time right now because of it. It takes a long time to go through that, and with all the buildings like we just seen, it could be days or weeks before they really know what's going on with all of that. Let me check let me check the White House really quick, see if they got Hyena Harris on stage. Otherwise, we'll just move forward. Well, she's supposed to be on stage any minute, but she's not on stage yet, so. So before she hops on stage, we're going to cover a couple tweets here that are related to the earthquake that we just witnessed. Alright, so this first video is in Buffalo, New York, and this is, at first it was said to be like part of the aftershock from Turkey, but now there's news reports saying that it was its own earthquake, and so this is a little bit of that. This is only 16 seconds long. It says rare magnitude 3.8 earthquake has just been felt in upstate New York. Got the dog all riled up. Cat Daniels, he'd have been circling the house like the Tasmanian devil. I don't know. Weird things happening. This post right here is talking about the big earthquakes in Turkey have likely led to the destabilization of fault lines across the world. That's what I kind of mentioned earlier, that there's people speculating that this is it's going to affect us in a major way. Here's another post saying that these earthquakes were felt in Japan. Now, I can't verify any of this. I can just show it to you, and you can go research for yourself. But that's what they're saying, that this is pretty much like a global event happening at this point. So I don't know. Go research for yourself. There is a lot of speculation going around. Next, we're going to cover a video that is just under 2.5 minutes long. It's going to go into the description about that video that we just watched, where there's an earthquake in New York. This was captured this morning. They're going to show the same video, but they're going to give us more details about what exactly it is that we just witnessed.
just on the smaller, but still significant earthquake that happened in Buffalo, New York this morning. Surrounding areas woke up to a shake right there in western New York. And it's pretty incredible to hear some of the developments of people actually getting woken up out of bed from this just after 6 a.m. Listen. Yeah, shocker, right? This is a 3.8 magnitude, according to...
Should have used a different phrase there.
Happened at 6:15 Eastern time on the northeastern edge of West Seneca. That's near the Lackawanna border. This earthquake could be felt as far north as Niagara Falls, right there along the Canadian border, and as far south as Orchard Park, New York. The Canadian government reports the seismic shift at 4.2 magnitude. So they were reporting from a different portion of the tectonic plate. But, you know, the shake intensity, just watching it there, you guys, definitely enough to wake people up from their sleep.
Yeah, this was significant in the sense that an earthquake of this magnitude in this area hadn't happened in a little bit more than a couple decades. Thank goodness we had that chimney that came down on a car, nobody was in it. Would have been much worse, but just to put it in perspective, I'm just taking a look at the earthquake scale. Because it's a logarithmic scale, you've got the 7.8 that occurred in southern Turkey. That's a 3.8, so you've got a difference of 4.0. Each level with a logarithmic scale is 10 times stronger. So that means what we saw happen over in Europe
Is 40 times stronger?
10,000 times stronger,
Really?
Because it's
it
the
goes,
multiple.
It goes
Yes.
multiple.
Yes. So that just gives you a little...
That kind of sound like some Biden math.
Earthquake was abroad.
That's incredible. Yeah, so yeah, growing in intensity like that, that is quite remarkable. And a lot of those buildings too are concrete buildings. They don't have the structure that could actually move easily. And so that's where we're seeing a lot of devastation with the buildings being flattened right off the bat. So this is a hard news to take. We'll be following it as we go throughout the morning. I'm Mimi Freeze.
Well, I'm still not seeing Hyena Harris, but I'm about to pull up the press briefing and see how that's going, because one of these guys is going to come on stage first. I love that I go to the White House live feed on YouTube, and there's more thumbs down than thumbs up. You got to have that little extension or whatever on Chrome. Right now they're racking up 69 thumbs up and 92 thumbs down if you guys want to go and assist that a little bit. Oh, she just hopped on stage. Would you look at that?
My great pleasure to once again convene this group and to the new members to welcome you to this table.
She sounded like she was staying up late last night too.
A place where we have convened here and in other rooms in this building and actually in other places in the country to talk about our collective goal of addressing the root causes of irregular migration from the northern part of Central America, and to do what I think we all know is in the best interest of all nations, which is to contribute to the health, well-being, security, and prosperity of our neighbors and our world. So I thank you all for the work you do, and I welcome you. I, in particular, would like to acknowledge the Partnership for Central America and its leadership. Co-chairs of this are Ajay Banca and Blanca Trevino, and I thank you for that, and of course, Vice Chair Ray Chambers. We, the three of us, started meeting almost 2 years ago, if you can imagine that, to have this conversation about how we could grow what has now become a substantial collaboration of public and private leaders in the public and private sectors to do the work that we have done thus far. And I thank you, the three of you in particular, for your early leadership and for all that you have done over the course of these last almost 2 years. And to the many leaders of our administration, I thank you as well. I'll speak in a moment about the fact that I think most of us who are devout public servants understand that we in government have great possibility in terms of the range at which we work as government, but when we are joined with our friends in the private sector, we can take advantage of the skills and the innovation that they so uniquely in so many situations are able to accomplish and grow. So we have made great and significant progress together thus far, and today we will launch the next steps in our efforts and a next phase in our efforts. Early on in our administration, President Biden asked me to lead the U.S. government's focus on addressing the root causes of migration, in particular from Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. Since then, my approach has been guided by three principles, as many of you here have heard over and over again. One, I do, and I think we all believe, that people generally do not want to leave home. And when they do, it is because they are either fleeing some harm or because staying home will mean that they cannot satisfy the basic needs of their family and themselves. Two, we believe and are guided by the principle that governments must collaborate to manage migration. And that means through bilateral, trilateral, multilateral relationships and dialogue, but also what we must do to address the issue requires that we partner with the private sector if we are to have lasting impact or even profound impact. Three, to effectively address the root causes of migration, we must also, and this is absolutely a guiding principle, promote good governance, reduce violence, and empower women. With this approach, I led the development of the Root Causes Strategy, which was released in July of 2021. In addition, a month before that, about 2 months before that actually, in May, I launched a call to action to encourage private sector investments in Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, in recognition, again, that government cannot do this work alone. This summer, at the Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles, I announced that working with the Partnership for Central America, we generated more than $3.2 billion in investments. These investments have created jobs. These investments have increased access to the financial system, including to the internet. These investments have allowed small businesses, which have the potential, not only in the United States, but around the world, and in particular in this region, have the potential to really thrive if they have access to financing. And so that has been also a target of the financing that we have been.
She looks hungover to me.
And for example, then, in terms of the product of this work thus far, over 1 million people have been brought into the formal financial economy, including 65,000 people who now have bank accounts.
She looks hungover, but she sounds like she's still
4 more million
inebriated.
are now connected to the internet. This is part of the progress that we have achieved thus far. Our root causes strategy and these investments represent a long-term development effort, but we are already beginning to see positive trends. Data from the Department of Homeland Security shows that the number of migrants from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, where our root causes efforts have been focused, have significantly declined over the last 18 months. Now, of course, this could change over time, and we will continue to monitor these trends, but this gives us an indication of the positive impact our work has had thus far. And of course, the research is pretty clear in telling us that when we create economic opportunity in these regions, as we have done, we can potentially have a great impact on those who otherwise would leave home and allow them the opportunity to stay in their home country, which is where they prefer to be. Today, it is my pleasure to announce additional private sector commitments, and in particular, a private sector commitment in total, in addition to the 3.2, of $956 million. So that brings us to a total of more than $4.2 billion to date. Today's announcement also includes commitments from the apparel, the textile.
I got the White House press briefing pulled up. If KJP steps on stage, we're cutting Harris short.
Our administration has collaborated with the Partnership for Central America to engage nearly 50 companies, foundations, and nonprofits to work together in this effort. Many of these companies and organizations are present here today, and again, I thank you. Our meeting today includes not only the work that we intend to do going forward, but working together to talk about how we can measure the success we have had thus far and continue to improve on the work we've done. For many who were at the original table, you will know that it has been built into our approach that we will devise metrics and be very clear, and I thank the university and Michelle for the work that has been happening to help us articulate the metrics by which we will then measure our success in real time, not waiting for years down the line, but in real time measure our success so that we can regroup, analyze where we are, and as necessary improve our approach.
That's not the only pearl necklace she's had today.
We have made thus far are on track to meet goals set out by the Partnership for Central America, which include the creation of 1 million new jobs by 2032 and the inclusion of 6 million people in the formal financial.
2032, I'll be lucky to live that long with the way things are going.
The second announcement I am pleased to make today is the launch of a new phase of our public-private partnership, which we have named Central America Forward. This includes a new series of U.S. government commitments to complement and support the investments from the private sector. Specifically, one, we will facilitate infrastructure projects in the northern area of Central America. For example, we will help to identify clean energy projects, something that we're excited about around the world, but in this particular region where we know we can have great impact. Another example is the work that we will do on behalf of the government to provide technical assistance to help make these projects viable and to connect potential investors with these projects. Two, we will help finance these and other projects through the United States International Development Financial Corporation, also known as the DFC, to enable these projects to actually receive the support that we can, as the United States government, uniquely provide. Three, USAID and the Department of Labor are supporting a series of workforce development programs, which will train young leaders in the skills that are needed in the private sector. In particular, we are looking at technical skills in the agricultural industry and the IT sector. And finally, today, our private sector representatives will commit to what we have called a good governance, good jobs declaration. And essentially, this will outline our shared effort to combat corruption and to protect labor rights in the region. As we advance our efforts to address the root causes of migration, our administration is simultaneously working to ensure a safe, orderly, and humane processing system at the border. As I have noted, over the last 18 months, migration flows have slowed down from the northern Central American region. But at the end of last year, we saw a rising level of migration from other countries. Congress must fix our broken immigration system, and Congress must provide the necessary funds for border security. In the meantime, our administration will continue to use the tools that we have, which is why President Biden announced last month additional resources for border security, new and expanded lawful pathways under our immigration authorities, and consequences for those who fail to use available pathways. Since the President's announcement, there have been a 99% reduction of irregular migration from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Ultimately, we need Congress to pass legislation that both enhances border security but fixes our broken immigration system. We are a nation of immigrants. We are a nation of immigrants. And it is immigrants who historically, in addition to all others, who have helped strengthen our country, strengthen our economy, and grow our ability to be innovative in a way that has been a model for other places around the world. So let us, all of us, as leaders, be it in the private or public sector, agree that we must not politicize this issue.
She could barely open her eyes.
And let us deal with it.
She might as well just come out with sunglasses on.
It will strengthen our nation. There is also a serious issue of human smuggling. And I will say, as a former prosecutor, having worked on this issue as a line prosecutor and as Attorney General of California, what we see in these behaviors are really predatory actors. And we've got to take this seriously and hold these criminal organizations accountable. Their patterns are quite clear. Smugglers extort thousands of dollars from migrants and subject them to dangerous and inhumane conditions. We've seen examples of where migrants have been abandoned in the desert or packed into the back of a truck, left to die in the heat. Since April of 22, in just the last 10 months, we have made more than 7,000 arrests in this regard, which is the result of our historic increase in the resources that need to be put into arrests and prosecutions. With regard
so you guys sent the victims back home, right? You didn't just throw them in the basement and act like you just robbed the plug, right?
Illicit fentanyl trafficking. It has fueled the opioid crisis and is a leading cause of death among the 18 through 42-year-old population in the United States. So our dedication of additional resources, in particular additional personnel and scanning resources, technology, has resulted in a 200% increase in the seizure of fentanyl along the border in the last 2 years. When it comes to transnational...
JJ Jennifer, you're a little late. That's what I was thinking too. The exact situation she described with illegals being in the back of semi-trucks, abandoned out in the desert in Arizona and stuff like that, to have humans cooking in there. That's been happening since like 2014 and maybe even before then.
And restricting traffickers' access to the materials they use to produce their deadly drugs. So with all of that...
And they really don't have to be smuggled in. They can just simply walk in. We've seen it so many times.
That you are doing.
251,000 came in just in December on foot.
There are many facets to this, both in terms of what can happen when we don't address problems for which there are solutions. But there is also an aspect of this that really is about believing in human potential, understanding the capacity of all people, and doing what we uniquely have an ability to do with the resources we have, to invest in that potential, and to invest in the hope and the dreams and the desires of all people to take care of themselves, their communities, and their families.
Thank you so much, Mercy Rain, for continuing the membership program for 17 months. You're officially a hooligan, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Here and around the world. So I thank you each for the amount of time, energy, and thought that you have put into our collaboration. And with that, I would like to ask Ajay Banga, who is the co-chair of the Partnership for Central America, to share his thoughts. Ajay brings decades of experience to business and to the private sector. Many of you have worked with him over the course of his career. It has been my great honor to work with you, Ajay, over the last 2 years. From the very first conversations we had, I believe back in February.
You've been working with him for 2 years. You don't remember having conversations. You had to read his name 6 times before you could say it, and then you had to read his credentials because you don't actually know anything about him, but you've been working with him for 2 years. Yeah, you got to work on that salesmanship. It ain't very good.
Prostitute. Thank you, Madam Vice President, for those words, but also most importantly for your leadership. I think what the U.S. government and the Partnership for Central America have achieved.
USA Forever. What is she talking about? I have no idea.
Small feat, and
no idea.
We're very grateful to you, to your team with Phil and with Rebecca and Lindsay, but also all the U.S. government colleagues who are gathered here and all the regional and other partners of the Partnership for Central America. Of course, my colleagues were sitting right here, without whom I would probably not be doing what I'm doing today. So I want to thank all of you for your effort and drive in making this happen. As you said, the Partnership for Central America consists of more than 75 corporate, academic, and non-profit partners. We're all committed to advancing job creation opportunities, but also to creating the enabling environment necessary to support those jobs in a smart and sustainable way in El Salvador, in Guatemala, and in Honduras. We're an independent, non-partisan, non-governmental organization. We serve as a mobilizer, we serve as a facilitator, we serve as a convener for investment in these Northern Central American regional countries. If we execute this well, we see ourselves as a model for public-private partnerships, not just here, but in other emerging economies as well. As the Vice President said a little while ago, and I think the numbers bear a little bit of repeating because she has insisted on numbers and metrics, so let me repeat some of them. Since our launch in May 2021, the partnership has mobilized more than $4 billion in investment, procurement, and lending to support El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. In the past 18 months, partners have financially included more than 1 million individuals, provided digital access to more than 4 million individuals, created more than 15,000 jobs, and remember, jobs are what we are doing this for, and that's the one that we will keep a very sharp eye on, supported more than 4,500 farmers, and provided technical training to more than 15,000 individuals, with 3,500 trained for certification for employment. I think together these investments are building opportunities as we work to get to supply chain integration across the Americas to support jobs and economic opportunity in the connected economies of the United States and Central America. And building on this progress, thanks to your leadership, Madam Vice President, Central America Forward to me is a whole new framework that should help us to further scale this public-private partnership to a new level. Because I think programs such as investment facilitation teams that will make investment opportunities possible for our new partners across the region, just that one program can make a big difference. And we're very proud today to be a part of the launch of Good Jobs, Good Governance Declaration, which upholds a standard for workers and the rule of law. Madam Vice President and everybody here, as we review the measurable progress, I'm underlining measurable, we achieved together in just 1.5 years, and we get to launch our next phase. I thank you, and I look forward to the positive impact that I believe that this unique public-private partnership will have on lives and communities. Thank you very much.
No point wasting your breath. They're not going to answer questions. That's not from today. Alright, give me a second. Let me see if Corinne's going to step on stage or if we're going to move forward with more videos.
Hello.
Just in time. Should be stepping on stage any minute now. Make sure you guys rack up those likes on all platforms. More likes, more hooligans. We're about to get started with this nonsense. I'm sure they're gonna make her cry. At least we could always hope. There is someone sitting in Peter's seat. Somebody needs to go tap that guy on the shoulder. Let him know we got assigned seats here. Maybe they're doing it strategically. We gotta look out in the crowd. Maybe Peter's hiding somewhere else. That's what he should do. And then maybe he'll get called on. There was a couple times there where she just flat out ignored him because she couldn't handle it. Someone should have sent in the social worker to handle her mental health crisis she has every day, just simply doing her job or whatever she's doing.
Prostitute.
If we say it 3 times, then maybe she'll appear like Beetlejuice. JJ, Rage Quit Monday. That's what I'm hoping for. What does she think? She's coming to the Grammys?
Everybody.
Calm down there. She kind of looks like the Wicked Witch. Oh, never mind. She's...
So before I introduce our
Well, there's a lot going on there. Yeah.
Devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Today,
Are they pierced or is it the outfit?
who have lost loved ones in the devastating earthquakes that have thus far claimed thousands of lives and caused massive destruction in Turkey and Syria. The president authorized an immediate U.S. response in addition to the U.S. personnel currently on the ground. We are in the process of deploying additional teams to support Turkish search and rescue efforts and address.
I want to say it's the dress, but the angles aren't even.
U.S. supported
I don't know, hooligans. What do you think?
Responding to the destruction in Syria. Since the earliest reports of an earthquake last night, American officials have been working closely with our NATO ally Turkey. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan reached out to his counterpart last night. Secretary Austin
Not gonna lie, that looks like an outfit from Django.
spoken with their counterparts today. USAID is also coordinating with their Turkish counterparts on traditional assistance. I just wanted to let you know, we just found out that we anticipate the president and President Erdogan will have an opportunity to speak very soon, and we will certainly have a readout when that conversation occurs. Finally, I wanted to turn it over to our special guest today, National Economic Council Director Brian Deese. Brian doesn't really need an introduction, as you all know, given I told you all just last week how much we will miss him when he departs later this month to spend more time with his family, which we think is an amazing thing for him and his family, and very happy for him.
Come on, man.
I will note that we all just learned that today will be his 11th press briefing in front of all of you, and it is an important milestone for many reasons, including being our first guest on the third day of this administration and sharing the podium with BTS. And you also made a pretty funny joke that day. I don't know if you remember when BTS was here. But
Eric, she's a pirate.
is here to preview the economic themes in the President's State of the Union address tomorrow. You should have all received a fact sheet just moments ago on those themes. And as well, we will have a press call tomorrow to preview another theme from the President's State of the Union, his unity agenda. You should have received an invitation to that call also a few minutes ago, and you can all expect additional fact sheets and excerpts ahead of the President's remarks at 9 p.m. tomorrow. So please keep your eye on your inbox for tomorrow, and please tune in tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the President.
Her hair looks a little bit more healthier than it has.
One of the many things I've appreciated is how you all keep us honest, including
oh yeah,
BTS.
Yeah, so honest.
You reported
transparent.
Precipitous decline in viewership.
That doesn't mean what it used to.
Moved out of the briefing room, and I took over to talk about economic policy. So, so thanks. I just wanted to spend a little bit of time, as Karine said, giving you a preview and a sense of how the president is going to address the economic priorities and economic issues in the State of the Union, and then happy to take your questions. I think that the president is hoping to do two things broadly when it comes to the economy in the State of the Union. The first is to put the progress that we have made economically back into the broader frame that really compelled him to run for president in the first place, and the broader frame around what it actually means to pursue what he refers to as a bottom-out, middle-out, bottom-up economics.
Top-down, bottom-up, right?
And make a clear contrast to the trickle-down economic philosophy that has pervaded thinking for years and decades in the past. And so you will hear him talk about the progress that we have made, but in that context, that it has been an animating part of what the president has wanted to achieve as president, and also a real consistent vision that from the campaign to the early days to ongoing, even as we have dealt with a variety of unexpected issues that we have had to work through, the president has had a vision about what it could actually mean to grow the economy from the bottom up. And you will hear about that. Now, the striking labor market report that we got on Friday obviously punctuated a historically strong period in the labor market recovery. You all know the statistics, the fact that the unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in 53 years. But the bottom-up nature of the economic recovery is often lost or best seen in lesser understood statistics. And so things like the fact that we have seen this historic burst in people creating new firms, people creating new businesses coming out of the pandemic is not only a source of hope, because people don't do that if they don't think there's opportunity in the economy going forward, but a huge source of potential dynamism for our economy that we need to make sure that we don't fall back into a pre-pandemic equilibrium of low growth, low wage increases, increased inequality. But also the historically equitable nature of this labor market recovery is something that, again, connects to this idea that the president has always centered on, which is putting workers and families at the center of his economic policy. So it's not just that we've seen the labor market improve this quickly. It's not just that we've seen household balance sheets come out of a crisis in a stronger position than any modern prior recovery, but also the equitable nature of that. And I just, to give you one example of that, if you look back historically over the last several recoveries, it's taken, on average, 50 months for the black unemployment rate to return to its pre-pandemic level. That happened in this recovery in 24 months, less than half the amount of time. And that record is true if you look across other demographic categories as well. So you'll hear that about the president sort of trying to put in context the progress that we have made. But the second thing is to speak to the work yet to come. And the president uniquely understands that we have a lot more work to do when it comes to the economy, and that even as we've seen real progress in inflation coming down over the last 6 months in particular, we have more work to do to bring prices down, lower costs, and create some breathing room, as he says, for American families. Even as we've passed historic legislation that will invest in America and help bring economic opportunity back to places across this country, we have a lot of work to do to actually implement and demonstrate that that kind of investment can unlock economic opportunity in ways that we're beginning to see all across the country. But we have a lot of that ahead of us. And we have additional work to do to demonstrate that we can do all of this while being fiscally responsible and while reducing the deficit, something the president has demonstrated in practice over the last 2 years, and that the plan that he will outline and the new policies that he will call for.
He was using bottom up as a filler word, and now it's
lower costs for families and reduce the deficit all at the same time. The last thing, which is something that is familiar to you all because he's been saying it since he was a candidate and as soon as he came into office, is he is going to continue to look for every opportunity when it comes to the economy and economic policy to reach out and work with Democrats and Republicans, find practical paths forward, find compromise. It's something that a lot of people wrote off, and I think he has and we have been able to demonstrate that we can make progress on even when people are skeptical of that. But at the same time, he'll draw some clear lines of things where he's not prepared to do, and we will have to see whether his commitment the Republicans are prepared to step up and work with him on a number of economic policy issues. So I think that's, in broad strokes, what you can expect to hear.
He loves those broad strokes.
When it comes to the economy, and with that, I'm happy to take a couple of questions.
Brian, congratulations on your tenure. On inflation specifically, a lot of progress has been made, and you guys have cited those statistics, but a lot of Americans still aren't feeling it. Polling shows that as well. What kind of message can President Biden give tomorrow night that also gets to the people who feel like, yeah, inflation is still really biting?
Yeah. I think the core message is we have to make more progress, but people should feel optimism that because of what we have seen and because of the progress that we've made, that we know how to keep making progress going forward. So, as you said, we have made a lot of progress. Inflation is down now for 6 months in a row. Obviously, a big piece of that is that gas prices have come down and are down by more than $1.50 from the summer. But we're seeing inflation moderate in a variety of other categories as well. And so at the end of the day, this is about can families and workers look and say, can I make everything add up at the end of the month? And so we need to keep making progress in bringing those price increases moderating, but we also need to keep making progress at lowering costs directly for families. And so that's one thing you're going to hear directly from the president, that a core part of any viable economic strategy needs to answer the question of how are you going to keep lowering costs for families. The president will outline specific
words are just words.
That, including building on the prescription drug reforms that we were able to enact to give more people the relief from prescription drugs. Building on proposals that we have put in place to, for example, lower the cost of childcare, lower the cost of caring for an elderly parent, so that also reduces a family's balance sheet challenges, but also can help more parents, more women work. Those are the kinds of policies that would actually help to continue the progress that we have seen. He'll outline those, and he'll make clear that that should be our priority, is looking at how do we keep this progress going.
Thanks a lot. Brian, good luck to you, whatever you are pursuing post-White House. Can you talk a little bit about how the debt limit will figure into the president's remarks tomorrow, and is that a critical component of the president's economic message?
Sure. Well, I think that what you'll hear from the president and what is definitely is his perspective is that the full faith and credit of the United States, this bedrock idea that the United States has met all of its financial obligations for its existence as a country, isn't something that anybody should be using as a bargaining chip. It's not a negotiable item. It's Congress's constitutional obligation. And that's how everybody should look at it. Not only because it's a bedrock of American stability, it's something that our adversaries would...
Terrible public speaker.
...question that might weaken the United States, but also because the economic consequences of even questioning that bedrock principle can be quite severe. So you'll hear that clearly.
Daryl, he gonna cry? He might.
He might. Openness and, in fact, an eagerness to have a real serious conversation about the fiscal and economic priorities of the country and where we can find common ground on things like lowering costs for families, on things like how do we keep investing in the country and creating more manufacturing jobs, and do that in a way that reduces the deficit. And the president is going to lay out a very clear and detailed plan, his approach for how to do that. He's eager to see other plans. And then we can have a conversation about that. That's the kind of conversation you have in a normal budget process, and that's the appropriate way to approach these things.
Thanks, Brian. A few minutes ago in your response to Jeff, you said the American people should feel...
Look at him, he's just dying inside.
Survey after survey shows they don't. An AP survey over the weekend showed
Who is the guy sitting in Peter's seat? And why does he look full?
He's heading in the wrong direction. Is that an objective for the president tomorrow night to sort of convince...
He looks like his bottom hurts.
...the economy are not the way, that they should be seeing things the way you are and not the way they are currently feeling right now?
I think the objective, as is always the case for the president, is to, number one, meet the American people where they are, with the recognition, as I mentioned, that the anxiety and the ongoing challenges that families feel in their lives are the reality of a very challenging period with a pandemic and a war in Europe that has driven...
Just give up and go home. Try again tomorrow. You suck.
And so first and foremost, to meet the American people where they are, but also to help explain why he is optimistic. That if we continue to make the kind of progress that we have, historic progress, even with all of the distance that we have yet to travel, then more and more families, more and more communities are going to see economic opportunity and more durable economic opportunity as a result of the policies that we have put in place, as a result of the economic progress that we're making. So that's the way that the president has always approached these things, but we'll approach it tomorrow is to acknowledge and meet the American people where they are, but also to try...
He looks like he's about to have a mental breakdown.
Where we are going, where we can go together. And it is the case that if you go around the world, if you talk to heads of state, CEOs, other leaders, they will tell you, that the United States really is better positioned than almost any other country. That the opportunity to invest in the United States is something that people are enthusiastic about, and that bodes very well for the economy, not only in the very short term, but over the medium term as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian, and good luck to you as you leave here. So related to that, Jeff Zients was brought in large part to be to implement a lot of the pieces of legislation that were signed into law. So I wonder if you could give us a timeline for when you think Americans really feel the impact of CHIPS, of IRA, of infrastructure. How long is it going to take before those policies really make a difference in the economy? And then secondly, at the top of your memo before the McCarthy meeting, you wrote 2 questions that you really wanted him to answer that the president was going to pose to him. Can you tell us if you got those answers about the
Yep.
When will they release their budget, and will he commit to the bedrock principle that the U.S. won't default on its debt?
Her arms look buff in that top.
Well, so let me take the first question first. And so
I'm gonna grab some coffee. Just give me a second.
We are beginning to see the impact all across the country. And I think that part of the reason why we have seen economic projections over the second half of last year defy many people's and many more skeptical observers' projections. We saw political outcomes defy a lot of people's projections as well. Is that we're beginning to see that. But on all three of the major pieces of legislation, on infrastructure, chips and science, and on the Inflation Reduction Act, 2023 is the year in which the most significant impact will begin to occur. And so, these things operate in stages. And so, if you live in a community like the greater Syracuse community in upstate New York, or outside in the area around Phoenix, the announcement that there is going to be a big investment in building a facility to manufacture semiconductors is the beginning of a process that is going to change and affect your community across time, beginning with significant new jobs in construction, and then over the course of 12 or 18 months hiring engineers and facility operators and the like. And so that will happen across time. But I think that this is a year of action and investment and implementation where across those areas you're going to see this unfold in more and more ways. And one of the things that we often show, but we use for our own internal planning as well, is just a physical map of the United States where you can see increasingly the commitments of private companies making investments, the grant announcements going in, the ways in which they're going to begin to unturn. And so it will certainly happen across time. I think, I do expect that this coming year will be a big year on that front. And the last thing that I'll say is that, this commitment to invest in this country in a way that we haven't really done for decades is core to the president's bottom-up economic philosophy. That you have to do that with speed and precision. You need to make sure people understand how it's done, but you also need to recognize that if we're really going to rebuild our infrastructure,
better recognize. All right, Mr. Guy.
In an area like semiconductors, we also have to be committed to doing it over a multi-year period. Certainly that's true of other countries where we have been deferring that maintenance and not doing that investment. So it's also going to be something that we need to commit to over time.
And the McCarthy memo?
Oh, right, okay. And so, what I would say about the meeting itself is that that both the president and the speaker had a constructive and frank exchange. The president clearly laid out his perspective on those issues. And I will say, we're continuing to hope and expect that the House Republicans will put out a budget plan, will bring forward a budget resolution. That is the way that the process works most effectively. And it really is important for the American people and for everyone to see they plan in full detail with numbers that add up.
Thank you so much, Mark, for that $2 donation on Rumble. I appreciate you, Mark. Thank you.
It's a question of honoring the full faith and credit of the United States, and everybody who holds an office of trust being clear that the United States will honor those obligations and will not default on its debt is something the president will continue to make clear and continue to make clear that.
Oh, yeah, so clear.
Republican, Democrat, who holds the office.
And laser focused.
The president tomorrow night is going to deliver the broader, optimistic look at the State of the Union. Right now in this moment, listening to what you have to say about the economy, what would you say is the state of the economy? Just specifically drilling down on the economy.
Yeah. Well, on Friday morning when I was over with the president in South Court, he said this, so I will just say what he said on Friday, which is that the state of the economy is strong. And that, you see that in the lowest unemployment rate in 53 years. You see that in the most jobs created in the last 2 years in our country's history. You see that in historic...
Yeah, to put a little pause there because he knows that's not true.
You see that in the wage growth that we have seen being disproportionately going to those in the lower half of the income distribution. And so even with all of the distance we have to travel and the understandable and important anxieties that families still face and the need to bring prices down further, I think that he feels, and we all feel, that we have an economy that is resilient, an economy that has been through an extraordinary amount and defied a lot of the skeptics' expectations over the last 2 years.
And another question, since police reform, this renewed call for police reform is supposed to be very strong in the State of the Union address, have you done the numbers, have you crunched numbers for this about the cost of bad policing to this nation, be it lawsuits, be it DOJ investigations, pattern and practice, etc.? Have you done the numbers crunching on that? Would it actually cost the American taxpayer with these incidents that continue to happen?
I don't have a specific analysis to point you to, but
thank you so much, Annette, for continuing the membership program for 11 months. And I appreciate you. Thank you. You're officially a hooligan.
In communities across the country, generates.
Can't believe that lady
absolutely
actually asked a question that didn't involve skin color.
But also has a broader economic dividend.
That's historical. That's what they should be talking about.
Crane, and congratulations on the next step that you're going to take. So last week, the Federal Reserve Chairman said that COVID is, quote, no longer playing an important role in our economy. Is the president going to make that pivot for policies and whatnot going forward?
Well, I think you've heard from the president, you've heard from this administration that because of the progress that we have made on COVID, it no longer is holding back our economy and the lives of the American people in ways that it was, in fundamentally debilitating ways 2 years ago, when 3 days into the administration, when I came to this podium. The reason why we're in that place.
He should just walk away. He's not believable at all.
And members of Congress work together to prioritize putting the historic strategy in place to actually get the country vaccinated and make workplaces safe for people to return. And so I think the fact that we are where we are right now is a testament to the hard work of actually prioritizing getting and a plan to get the pandemic under control. And certainly, I think our policies reflect that, including the announcement about how to responsibly wind down the pandemic emergency authorities.
The administration and the Department of Justice is using that as the COVID hardship, economic hardship, as a reason for student debt forgiveness. So does that policy then come off the table?
No, I think the legal and the practical justification for student debt forgiveness is about the impact that this pandemic has had on individuals' personal circumstances. And certainly those impacts, which have accumulated over the course of the last couple of years, are profound, they're straightforward, and I think that argument persists even as we make progress through getting to new stages of this pandemic.
Thanks, Brian. Another polling question, you touched on it a little bit with some of my colleagues' questions. You mentioned how the president said Friday that the state of the economy is strong. We had a poll out over the weekend, ABC News, that found that 41% of Americans say they're worse off financially now than before this president took office. How do you explain the disconnect there of why this administration's message about the strong economy is not getting through?
Right. So I think the poll that you just cited is actually consistent. So about 2/3 of Americans say that their circumstances are better than before. You say it either way. And I think that it is the case that if you look at the kind of key measures of basic economic security, do I have health insurance? Do I have $400 in the bank in case my car breaks down or I have another emergency expense? Am I late or delinquent on a credit card bill? Am I facing foreclosure? If you look at all of those measures,
we're all facing that.
On average, American households are in a better position than they were before the pandemic hit, and that's
no.
The lower income quartiles as well. And so I think that that is in part reflected in the data that you're saying, is that more Americans believe they're in a better economic position in terms of their own balance sheet, their own family balance sheet. And at the same time, in the way that we were talking about before, this has been a very challenging period with with the pandemic and all of the ways in which the second and third order ways in which that's affect our lives and the way that we operate in the economy, with the war in Ukraine and the cascading impacts on supply chains and on the ways it affects things that, the basic price of things that people.
I'd ask how he sleeps at night telling lies like that, but it's probably underneath another man.
Even as personal household circumstances for the majority of people have improved, the anxiety, the economic anxiety is real. So I just go back to the answer I gave before, which is why the president will both speak directly to the fact that we have more work to do, but also underscore how the progress we have made to date can paint a picture to move forward and why we should then commit to the proposition of seeing these policies and this policy vision through.
I should basically have mine, so I'll... Yeah, I mean, building off that same question, I guess when you've been asked variations on this, on the perceptions voters are having in the economy, but when do people start feeling more optimistically about the outlook? And just to clarify on the stat that was just cited, it's only 16% of those in the poll believe they're financially better off than when Biden entered the office, the White House. It's 42% feel about the same. So just to clarify, it's only 16% are feeling better off. Yeah. So when do people start feeling? More people start feeling better off about the financial future of the country.
Well, look, I think that I don't want to, I don't want to repeat myself, only to say we have more work to do. But if you look at the progress that we have made, particularly the recent progress that we have made, with inflation coming down, gas prices coming down, real wages as a result going up.
Where is all of this happening?
Opportunities that come from a strong.
Because it ain't happening here.
Those are all reasons why.
Thank you so much, big fella, for that $2 donation on YouTube. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Ultimately, the ultimate, the ultimate test of an economic policy and an economic outcome is whether families feel more economic security in their lives. And if you look at numerous measures, as we just discussed, we have come through this recovery, recovering people's economic security historically fast and historically equitable. And we have to keep making progress on that.
Where's the fruits of your labor?
The president has a lot of good news to tout tomorrow: low unemployment, reinvestment.
That's who was with Hyena Harris last night. Look at that hairdo. They both probably came stumbling in, smelling like BO and alcohol and stale cigarettes this morning. Just looking at the floor like this. A little shame game. Oh, they cut the audio. Come on. I was just being hilarious. You didn't have to mute it. Goofy White House. Well. What is he asking to where they muted?
The core of what we've seen in this economy has been a pandemic-driven economic crisis and a pandemic-affected recovery. And that pandemic, when he came here, was raging out of control, and there was no strategy, economic strategy, to actually drive a recovery in the economy.
They muted the question.
And I think that as we look back, the principal drivers of inflation have been the pandemic globally, and subsequent shocks to the system.
Is that part of them being transparent?
The war in Ukraine. And so that's where the sort of core drivers have been, and that's as a result how we have oriented our economic policies. And I think that that arc and that trajectory is one that now, being on the other side of it, we are making progress, and globally, as inflation is a challenge everywhere. The United States is one of the places where we're seeing one of the strongest and most resilient labor market recoveries, with inflation coming down as well. So yeah, I think that that's the historical context in which the president was speaking, and certainly it's the context in which we've been designing and implementing our policies.
How did they not yell, "Shut the hell up"?
Let's go back to the Friday jobs report. Goldman has a report out today saying I think the odds of a recession are falling next 12 months to 25%. They now peg the odds up from 35%. What do you think the odds are of a recession right now, and do you think that they're improving given that jobs data? Like, are you more hopeful of a soft landing?
Look, the way I'll answer that question is to go back to a point I made earlier about the importance that this president having a consistent and clear economic vision. If you go back, 7-8 months ago when we laid out our strategy for how to effectuate a transition to more steady, stable growth, which meant trying to bring inflation down, maintain a resilient and strong labor market.
I would like ranch on my word salad, thank you.
That
a couple of croutons
wasn't feasible. That the economy would likely be in recession now, in the first quarter of this year. And I think that over the course of this period of time, we've seen.
I feel like IQ points are in a recession. Thank you so much, Cookie Monster, for that $10 donation on YouTube. I appreciate you. Thank you.
And we find ourselves today in an economy where we have real resilience here. And so as we look forward, the takeaway that we take is less to look at the infinite predictions that are out there, that we study those analyses along with others.
We're going to be deaf by the time KJP gets on stage with her
The policy agenda that we know and we have seen has really helped to bring this progress along. So that's where our focus is.
You don't think the recession odds are falling status quo?
I think if you look over the course of the last 3 months, it would be hard-pressed not to say that the economic data has come in a way that is spoke to inflation cooling and a more resilient labor market than most people thought was possible.
A bit of a tricky question. They haven't obviously announced your successor yet. We don't know when that will be. One of the rumored candidates has been the vice chair of the Fed. Have you been part of any conversations at the White House about how that process would go in replacing or filling any Fed candidacy? And would existing governors be a candidate for the vice chair? Or would you be looking outside to fill the vice chair position?
So the president hasn't made a decision. I'm not going to speak to or get ahead of the president making a decision on that front, so I'm going to leave that to him.
Thank you, Brian. The Federal Reserve increased rates and signaled more rate hikes. Is the president concerned about rising borrowing costs for businesses, for consumers, and how is this going to impact his economic plan going forward?
Well, I think it goes. It's an important question, and it connects to. I'll bring it back to where we started this briefing, which is the president's view is that the most important things we can do for the economy right now to sustain this historic recovery, transition to not only to get back to the pre-pandemic equilibrium, but to have an equilibrium where we have stronger, more resilient growth, higher productivity gains, stronger and more broadly shared wage gains, is to actually invest in this country and lower costs for families. And so that's particularly important at a time where the financial pressures on families and household balance sheets are acute, and to do that in a way that is consistent with this transition that we need to have. And we have a policy model for how to do that. In fact, the Inflation Reduction Act was at its core about lowering costs that families face. The actual monthly costs that they face for prescription drugs or for health care, lowering the clean energy costs that they face, while also reducing the deficit at the same time. So we know that we can do this. We just passed a historic piece of legislation to this effect. And so in areas from childcare to housing to otherwise, you'll hear proposals from the president that have exactly that structure. How do we lower the costs on a family's balance sheet and do it in a way that actually supports the macroeconomic transition we need?
Thanks. Brian, I wanted to ask you if we should expect to hear anything from the president tomorrow night about the solvency of Social Security and Medicare. Will he have a comprehensive plan? Will we hear about it tomorrow night?
So I think what you can expect to hear from the president is
a bunch of stammering and stuff that doesn't make sense.
Which is he thinks that it is not something he would support to cut either of those programs, and that there are ways that we can strengthen those programs and actually increase the ways in which they help the American people while also bring down the deficit at the same time. So you can certainly expect to hear from him a pretty clear posture when it comes to those programs.
Specifics that address the solvency question?
Well, I think that there'll be a period between the State of the Union and the budget, and so I think you'll hear from the president speaking about his principles and his vision tomorrow, and then I think you can expect that you're going to see a lot of detail about the president's policies in his budget.
Andrew.
Thanks. In the speech, will he directly express optimism that the U.S. won't hit a recession? Is that something he'll address directly? And then on a separate issue, I think you're set to meet with the French and German economic ministers here tomorrow. They're raising concerns about the subsidies in the IRA. What's your message to them going to be? And what's the latest in terms of how the U.S. might accommodate concerns in Europe?
Yeah. So on the first question, I think you'll hear the president is optimistic about America's future because he believes in the American worker and the grit and resilience of the American people, and that that's a message that he will communicate clearly. And with respect to your second question, our
they don't respect anything. Don't lie to us.
Clear, which is that
they wouldn't come out if that was the case. Thank you so much, Annette, for that $10 donation on YouTube. I appreciate you. Thank you.
That when the United States steps up and makes the most significant investment in
this guy's gonna cry in the hallway when he walks out off the stage.
History of the country. One of the many things that it does is to actually accelerate the reduction in cost of deploying next-generation energy technologies that are critical for the world, and that those benefits are felt far outside the United States. Number one, and number two, we have nothing to apologize and frankly everything to be proud about. That is a piece of legislation that provides long-term technology-neutral incentives to invest in the United States, and particularly in communities that have borne the brunt of pollution or have been at the front end of producing traditional fossil energy. That's the right thing to do for the country. It's the right thing to do for our clean energy manufacturing base. It's the right thing to do for American workers. And the president's quite proud of that approach. So we'll continue to work through those pieces, but I think the important piece is to keep our eye on the fact that the United States is now leading, and other like-minded countries should both recognize that and also seek opportunities to partner with us. That's certainly something we're open to.
Putting aside
Sonic Boy Harp is trending. So is Civil War. It's interesting over on Twitter.
It was shockingly close.
Yeah.
It's a correlation causation.
Yeah, I figured as much. But on a serious note, a lot of the optimism is based on the legislative agenda that you guys signed into law after the first 2 years. But implementation, while it's kind of an abstract concept, also brings challenges. When you look into the months or years ahead when it comes to implementing that agenda, what challenges do you think the administration is going to have to confront, and how capable do you think they are with the tools they currently have to overcome any implementation challenges?
Yeah. Well, even the word implementation, it sort of sounds technocratic. This really is about investing in America, because it's about using public investment, grants or tax incentives, to crowd in an enormous amount of private investment across the country. And you're right, the priority has to be on doing that efficiently and effectively and with
it's weird how he could string those first couple sentences together without pausing, stopping, clunking around. But then when it comes to describing what he means, then all of a sudden he's so delicate that it's just a bunch of uhs and ahs.
The president has been so supportive of permitting reform, and while we're looking at the tools we have, the executive tools.
And he's dancing around a little bit.
The process, we need to demonstrate to the American people in the world that we can build faster, more efficiently, and more equitably than we've done in the past. And while that's a challenge, I feel really quite confident and optimistic that we have the tools in place. Congress has given us the tools across those three pieces of legislation. We have extraordinary talent and capability across the executive branch, and there's been a lot of now, because these laws have passed, a lot of mobilization happening at the state and local level with companies and otherwise organizing around this collective effort. So no question there will be challenges and there will be setbacks along the way. But I think that collective effort of investing in America, I would just end on the note of, it also it summons a larger national project. Again, one that we haven't really taken on as a country since the 1960s, around collectively understanding the impact of what it means to invest across years in upgrading our infrastructure, changing the face of the country, whether it's electric vehicle charging stations or whether it's being able to say, we committed to the proposition that we were going to eliminate lead pipes from schools and homes across the country, and then being able to see many years down the road. And that also creates the opportunity for people to feel, and we've been talking about pulling this sense of pride in the United States that we can do big things and we can do big things collectively, and that's.
He wants us to know that he's got a lot of pride and he likes to do big things. And good for you.
Do you have any comment on the billions of dollars that went to scammers during your administration?
Gentleman in the back.
Mr. Tis, do you have any comment on the fraud that took place on the COVID money? Billions of dollars went to fraudsters.
First of all, thank you for taking so many questions. We all appreciate that, and we hope your successor will too, and we do really appreciate it. A number of them dealt with this perception issue of how Americans are feeling differently than a lot of the positive data you have. Is there a perception issue in the other direction on inflation? Because when the president says he's not responsible for inflation, that it's a global issue and things like that, is there a problem or maybe a gap somewhere in how the White House views inflation when so many Americans feel it on a daily and weekly basis when they're having to meet their obligations? Is there a perception gap on inflation here?
No, not at all.
Perception gap.
Gone out and said that his top economic priority is to bring down inflation. You have a president that prioritized working with Congress to pass a bill called the Inflation Reduction Act, which, as we talked about before, was designed specifically to lower the cost of people's.
A perception gap sounds like another phrase for a psyop.
And you have a president that has been tireless about working on those issues that connect most directly to the lived experience of people across the country. The efforts, which I won't, we've talked about at this podium around trying to help bring gas prices down in the wake of Putin's invasion.
You guys brought them up.
Visible in public, like the historically strategic petroleum reserve, to things the president is doing every day behind the scenes.
Sleeping, crapping his pants, stammering, giving poor speeches, being lost.
As a result, in no small part,
that's all he's doing every day.
Now seeing progress. That progress is not sufficient. We need to keep making more progress. But the president is actually focused today on those issues, and that's what you're going to hear. How can we keep making progress to reduce lower costs for people?
Put in effort.
This
try.
Also is an area of
or go away and let somebody who can make progress stand in your position.
He wants this economic conversation to focus on how we can keep reducing costs for the American people, and doing things like cutting taxes for the very wealthiest people in the country and increasing the deficit as a result of that. Not only are bad economic policy, but they don't speak in any way to that core issue. So I think the president is very much focused on that issue. He's shown that he can actually work to deliver results, and is going to keep arguing why we need to make more progress on that front.
Very last question. The gentleman.
All right, call on Simon now.
McCarthy clearly believes Democrats in the White House will give Republicans some concession for raising the debt limit. I'm wondering why Democrats would negotiate at all over that debt ceiling.
So we'll just circle back. I think I've answered elements of this before.
You guys missed Jim Balsacki?
Between two things. One is the
circling back.
The United States government and the sacrosanct nature of that commitment, and the core commitment that the U.S. needs to pay its bills, and any sense that the United States is going to fail to meet that obligation has enormous economic and national security ramifications that
considering we pay their bills, that doesn't sound great.
Separate from that issue, having a conversation about fiscal policy, having a conversation about how we can reduce the deficit responsibly while also keeping our focus on lowering costs for families is something that the president is eager to have. And frankly, the way to have that conversation is for the president to put out his budget plan, for House Republicans to put out their budget plan, and then to have a conversation around those two. So that's why you've heard the president and the administration both commit that we'll put out a budget. We'll put out a very detailed budget here in the next month. And our hope and expectation is that the House Republicans will do the same.
All right. Thank
Any
you so
comment
much,
on
Steve.
COVID fraud?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call on Simon.
Thank
You guys suck.
All right.
Will you be shaken?
That's a good question.
Don't worry, there won't be any answers.
So much. And one more thing before
She's over here trying to poke my eye out.
questions. I also wanted to highlight that today the Vice President is convening private sector leaders.
Are you trying to get so close to me, KJP?
She launched in 2021 to address the root causes of migration from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. The Vice President is announcing that this partnership has generated more than $4.2 billion in private sector investments. These investments are creating economic opportunity for people in those countries so that they are less inclined to leave their homes and take the dangerous journey to the United States. These are long-term development efforts, but we are already seeing encouraging trends. Illegal border crossing from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras have significantly declined over the past 18 months. That's in addition to the impact of the border enforcement measures President Biden announced just last
Maybe on paper it's declined.
Dramatic decline in
why cross legally?
With Venezuela, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Cuba. All told, we are now seeing the lowest number of illegal crossing between ports of entry since February of 2021. It doesn't mean our work is done. As you all know, we still have more work to do, and we're going to keep at it. But unlike Republicans in Congress who simply pull the political stunts and try to get in the way, we've got an actual plan to address these very challenging issues. And as you see, as I just laid out, our plan is indeed working. All right. Go ahead, Steve, kick us off.
Thanks, Green. Just a bit of housekeeping. Give an update on when the president will be coming back from Camp David. Is there a reason for his delay?
No update on when he's going to be returning. I think we had mentioned, and you probably saw his Twitter account this weekend, just laying out how on social media how the president was going to Camp David to focus on his speech for tomorrow night. I just don't have an update on his return, and I'm sure it'll be sometime this afternoon.
A different topic. In the wake of the balloon operation, NSC and the administration has said that it's going to brief members of the Trump administration on that. Can you give us a list of which Trump administration members would be eligible for that briefing? I mean, is former President Trump eligible, since the president had previously blocked him from getting classified briefings after he left office?
So as we mentioned, and you heard my colleagues from NSC, that we are prepared. The intelligence community is indeed prepared to offer key officials, as you were just laying out, from the Trump administration on the briefings on this PRC surveillance program. And so we're not going to get into who are those key officials. From here, I would refer you to the intelligence community on those.
Thank you so much, Lone Wolf, for that $10 donation on Rumble. I appreciate you. Thank you.
But again, we are prepared. We are willing to have that conversations, to do the briefing, but just not going to get into the specifics of who.
And just on a third topic, a number of surveys, including from the AP over the weekend, showed that majority of Democrats don't want the president to seek re-election. They're looking for a new generation, concerns about his age. Without getting into whether or not the president will announce, does the president believe that he has to address those concerns from his own constituents?
So as you just laid out, I'm going to be very careful, covered by the Hatch Act. Don't want to get into the specifics of what 2024 is going to look like or any underlying components of that. The president has been very clear. He intends to run. And
you guys are going to censor everyone except for the guy you want to win.
What we saw from
got it.
Right? I think that's a really important point there, where the president laid out the policy, right? He's the one that laid out the policy for senators and congressional members to...
Thank you so much, Lifelike, for that $5 donation on YouTube. I appreciate you. Thank you.
We saw what happened in the Senate. We saw that, yes, Republicans now have Congress, but by a slim majority. We were told it was going to be more than 60 seats, and it's not that at all. And that's because the president went out there, spoke directly to the American people, and laid out what it is that we have done the last 2 years, how we've built. You've heard from Brian Deese just moments ago. He took many, many questions laying out the president's economic plan, how it's working, but how there's still more work to do, but essentially talking through the different policies that became legislation, that turned into law. That was historic, and all of those pieces matter. And I think the State of the Union, he'll have an opportunity to speak directly to the American people, not just Congress, to talk about what we have done what he has done the last 2 years, and how he sees.
She thinks she's a part of everything.
And so
always telling people what they should be doing. She's like, what we've been doing? You're no one.
Always says this.
Overglorified secretary.
See what he does. And I think he has a record over the last 2 years that shows that he has delivered. And that's the numbers that we're going to pay attention to, right? We're going to pay attention to
the numbers that you just make up in your head.
More than 53 years, a historic unemployment. We're going to pay attention to more than almost 12 million jobs that has been created under this president. We're going to pay attention to the 800,000 manufacturing jobs that has been created under this president. And I think that's what we're going to continue to work on, and that's what we're going to continue to speak to.
Thanks, Corinne. Some State of the Union preparations questions. Can you tell us what the president was doing at Camp David this weekend? What did those preps look like? Who is he working with? Is he still in major rewrites at this point, or just kind of fine-tuning, doing run-throughs? What was the weekend like for him?
So one of the things that I said this last week, is that, as you know, when it comes to big speeches like this, there's going to be probably, tweaks and to the speech until the last minute. That's kind of how it goes. But I'll say more generally, or actually speaking to your question about Camp David, the president was accompanied by several of his senior aides. Work has gone into the speech over the course of many, many weeks, as we know, because, again, this is something that the president truly sees as a moment to speak to the American people. And the work continued through the weekend as it did today. Michael Donnellan was there, Bruce Reed.
Tom McDonald was there?
Steve Ricchetti, Anita Dunn.
Or was it Ronald McDonald? I got confused.
His speechwriter. And so that was kind of the makeup of the weekend, and certainly not going to get ahead of anything else from here.
And how does the
You going to talk about Jill Biden being at the Grammys last night?
Different dynamic in the House chamber tomorrow night with the Republican majority compared to his speech last year? This is a Republican majority that's launched multiple investigations into his administration. How is he thinking of that as he goes to give this speech tomorrow night?
Well, as you know, the president is heavily, as I've said many times, heavily engaged in the writing process. When you hear the speech, you'll certainly hear there will be no question that this is a Joe Biden State of the Union speech.
It's a Joe Biden special.
Clear, but don't want to get ahead of what you're going to hear from him. And so, again, it's going to be about ensuring our accomplishments and what we've done the last 2 years. He'll talk about that clearly. He'll lay that out. And, and I've also said this before, this is a president that's incredibly optimistic, and he talks about the possibilities. He talks about not betting against the American people. And so you'll continue to hear those types of themes in his speech. But of course, I'm not going to get into specific issues or the political moment that we're in as he's still working through and dealing with the speech for tomorrow. Phil.
Thanks, Corinne. The administration officials said that after the balloon was shot down, there were communications between the administration and their Chinese counterparts, and kind of detailing maybe rationale on the why. Can you talk about how you guys are thinking through the next steps in this relationship, given the cancellation of Secretary Blinken's visit, and obviously what seemed to be a pretty brazen act over the course of the last week?
So look, our approach with China has been pretty clear, and we've been very clear about this, and it will continue to be calm, resolute, and practical. That is not going to change on how we're going to move forward with our relationship with China, with our diplomatic conversations as we move beyond this. The president has been clear. We have been and will continue to keep open lines of communications with China. As you mentioned, Blinken and Jake Sullivan and many others have continued those dialogues, especially after.
Why haven't we heard any questions about the balloon yet?
Like I was mentioned, there was multiple levels of conversation about their surveillance balloon, and again communicated directly with China after we took
silly stuff.
Bring the balloon down. So again, multiple.
I thought it was a big deal.
Communication that will continue. China's, we believe, irresponsible action
we believe
in the world to see. Not only that, at the same time, a second PRC surveillance balloon was seen traversing in Latin America. That's one thing that you all reported. And it's up to China to show it is serious about its words of being
as if it's not confirmed. A second balloon was spotted that you all reported, as if they don't know what's going on at the White House.
Very recently. And so it's up to China to figure out what kind of relationship that they want. And as you
drumstick, Pentagon balloon. That's what it sounds like.
Lincoln did postpone his trip. It was not canceled. And when the time permits, we'll see that.
Backley's. I want an interview with the balloon, I'm saying.
What we are trying to do and how we're trying to move with China, it's up to them.
And then, just one more. On Saturday, when the president spoke just off of Air Force One, he seemed very definitive in making clear that he was the one who said explicitly, "I want this to be shot down." Military leaders suggested wait. Was that a reflection, perhaps, in frustration in terms of the political attacks you guys have gotten from Republicans who said this should have happened on the front end as opposed to the back end?
Well, just a couple of things. I know there was a TikTok that went out to all of you from the National Security Council that was pretty detailed on how everything kind of broke down for the past week.
You guys received messages and TikTok videos?
I'll give a little truncated version of that. On Tuesday, the president, through the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, directed the military to refine and present options to shoot the balloon down immediately. The president also directed the military and the intelligence community to collect against the balloon so that we would learn more about China's capabilities and tradecraft. At the same time, we protected against Chinese intelligence collection because we knew exactly where the balloon was going. The military recommended taking the balloon down over water, following the determination by military commanders that there was undue risk of debris causing harm to civilians while the balloon was over land in Alaska, Canada, or the continental United States. On Wednesday, the president directed the military to take it down at the first available opportunity when it could be done with safety, especially as we're thinking about Americans' lives and being safe there, while maximizing our ability to recover the payload. Shooting the balloon down over water wasn't just the safest option. It maximized the chance of recovering the payload, giving us a better chance to get information from the Chinese surveillance balloon payload. But I think the bottom line here, and this is something that we want to make very clear, is that, look, what China did was unacceptable. We protected civilians, and we gained more intel while protecting our own sensitive information. And so
you're not giving us intel, though.
I laid that out so you have an understanding of how this past week went. And, you know, the president, as we...
Was it propelled? What was the gas that came out of it when you knocked it out of the sky? What did you retrieve? Were they live streaming? Was there GPS to it? And so on and so on and so on.
But at the same time, we wanted to make sure that we were able to collect some data, which we were able to do, and that's why we took that action. And the president made sure we took that action.
Oh, I thought it was we.
How much damage would you say has been done to the U.S.-China relationship because of this? And do you expect the president to bring this topic up in his speech tomorrow night?
Look, I will say this, as we know, when it comes to State of the Union speech, foreign policy is always a topic in that speech. I'm not going to get ahead of the president and what he's going to speak to as it relates specifically to China. I just laid out at the top that it is going to be up to China. It's up to China to see how they want to see this relationship moving forward.
What? They invaded our airspace, and we're going to leave it up to them? The ball's in our court. The balloon is in our court.
Brian Deese's take on the economic terms.
Sissies. Sissies.
A theme. Can you just give us a broad brush answer on what does President Biden hope to achieve with the speech tomorrow night?
Not a whole lot.
And
condemning anyone that voted red team.
This doesn't change much at all, is that the president sees this moment as a critical moment, an important moment to speak directly to the American people, to talk about the last 2 years, to talk about where we've been and where we're going. And that is important to the president. That doesn't change. This is his second State of the Union speech. Certainly not going to get into issues and get ahead of the president. But the president will underscore the progress we have made during one of the most challenging times, especially in history, and the progress the American people want us to continue to make by working together in this year ahead. You just heard from Brian outline how the president has carried out his economic vision, growing the economy from the bottom up and middle out, instead of from the top down. And one of the things that you have seen this president do, he has transformed how we see the economy. Right? When you think about the trickle down economy, he sees it again, bottom up, middle out. This is something that the president has done with the policies that he's put forward.
No, but you guys keep saying that he has.
Continue to hear from him. Continue to hear from him about giving the American people a little bit more of a breathing room, because this is something that he understands personally.
He's going to tell us how his dad calls him honey.
Opportunity for the president, again, to speak directly to the American people.
Whatever, KJP.
Watching and who will be wanting to hear from their president, and he takes this incredibly seriously. Go ahead, Michael.
So I wonder if I could follow up a little bit on Zeke's third question. I think you made the assertion that the reason that there wasn't a red wave, or the reason that the elections and the midterms were more successful than many people thought they would be for Democrats was because of the president. That's a fair...
Yeah, and we've said that before. It's nothing new. We think the president played a very big role in laying out the message for Democrats.
So I wonder how, in light of the following...
That sounds like manipulation.
That assertion. This is a recent NBC poll. Is Biden honest and trustworthy? 34% yes, 48% no. Ability to handle a crisis? 32% yes, 49% no. Competent and effective? 31% yes, 49% no. Has the necessary mental and physical health to be president? 28% yes, 54% no. Uniting the country? 23% yes, 50% no.
Normally when they say what the American people want, they don't go into detail like this.
It's not just a single poll. It's been, versions of that have been repeated in poll after poll, survey after survey since the midterm elections and before. And I think one of my colleagues referenced a recent poll that said
so good.
More Democrats don't want President Biden to be their nominee than Republicans don't want President Trump to be their nominee. So given all of that, why are you so convinced that it was President Biden that caused the Democratic success in the midterms and not that the Democrats had success in spite of the president?
Well, I'll say this, because if you look at what candidates, senators, and congressional members ran on, it was the successes that the president had. It was on the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. It was on the CHIPS.
So you're just going to ignore everything he said?
Because of the president was able to make that happen. It was because of the Inflation Reduction Act. If you hear the message that was coming out of Democrats during the midterms, it was what we were able to deliver. So yes, so that's what they used, right? They used exactly what the president was able to do in order to get that success.
So the American people are lying about what the American people want. Now you got to tell us what the American people want, because we don't know what the American people want, us being the American people, right? Okay.
Again, the president led that, and the president went out there and spoke on these very...
If you're a doughhead, then just say that.
When you think about what it's done for the economy, what it's done for the American people, how it's provided some relief, yeah, I think the president did play a big role.
So then just one quick follow-up. I mean, I guess, does it suggest then that maybe the Democrats who were talking about the president's agenda have been more successful at talking about the president's agenda than the president himself has been? And does that make it all the more important tomorrow and whenever the president rolls out his re-election campaign, if he does, but does it make it that much more important for the president to somehow find a way to communicate as effectively as I guess some of these other Democrats were? Because obviously, however he's communicating now isn't translating.
So I'll say this, Michael, and Brian spoke to this, right? I think he got this question every which way from your colleagues, and a very important question to ask. But I'll say this: we understand, and it is true that the American people are feeling inflation. They're feeling what the pandemic and COVID has done, right? The last 2-3 years, and so we understand that.
We didn't feel it till he got here.
About the economy right now. And so that is something that the president has always acknowledged and has said there's always more work to do. But also the reality is, if you look at the data, if you look at how the economy has bounced back because of this work that the president has done, and Brian spoke to this, I have spoken to this, when you think about record 12 million jobs, when you think about unemployment at the lowest that it's been in 54 years, when you think about the 800,000 manufacturing jobs and how important the CHIPS and Science Act is going to continue to be as we see manufacturers coming back to the U.S., those are real data points, right? Those are real things that has occurred these past 2 years, and it's because of the president. And so, look, we get where the American people are, but what
president
are the numbers that I just...
It's always his fault.
Also important. Will we continue to need to talk direct to the American people? Absolutely. That's why the State of the Union, we see it as an important moment to lay out for the president, to lay out how he sees the country moving.
She should be fired for this stuff right here. Just totally ignore what's being said to just regurgitate old information. It's not true. It's all nonsense.
Is how he's going to continue to deliver for the American people.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks. Is this the first Chinese balloon that the U.S. identified flying over U.S. airspace under this administration?
So what I can say is that we have talked about China's balloon program. We have generally on this, the Chinese surveillance balloons program has been around for some time. We even briefed Congress this past August. So I don't have any specific on any other balloon during this president's administration, but there has been a program that has been in effect. We have kept Congress abreast on that. But I don't have anything more to say or to share.
How is it possible that this administration discovered at least 3 previous balloons that flew over the U.S. under the previous administration, but Trump officials didn't know it was happening?
Yeah, so look, I think that, and we have talked about this before, about how when the PRC government surveillance balloons transited the continental U.S. briefly, at least 3 times, as you just mentioned during the president's.
They didn't turn their wiener inside out. What are you talking about?
That we know of the beginning of this administration's, but never for this duration of time, as we know. This information was discovered prior to the administration left, but the intelligence community, as I said, is prepared to give briefings to key officials. But this is something. Sorry, post. But this is something that they were not aware of, as we've just laid out. But again, we are ready to brief key officials to let them know what.
The reporters should stop showing up to these press briefings until they just get someone new.
Did you? Is there? I just don't. Did you go back and look at some?
So I'm not going to get into intelligence community information.
So it's just simply not factual. That didn't actually happen. You guys are just saying it happened.
Say is that we learned of this, the 3 prior during the past administration, and so we are willing to share that information. But again, not intelligence from here.
So where was everyone taking pictures?
The administration
was
aware.
Where's all the videos of it?
Did any U.S. officials have conversations with the Chinese about balloons over U.S. airspace?
How come there was no flights grounded because of it? How come the media didn't hop up there and talk about how the MAGA king is allowing the CCP to fly spy balloons across the country? They would have fallen off their seats trying to run and report that kind of stuff because they hate him. So where was all of that? Everybody on the ground could see it. You guys are trash. Human garbage. What are you talking about? Liars.
Conversations from here.
Follow up on that.
Oh. What happened?
If you get time for 1 or 2 more.
Okay, 1 or 2 more. All right, I'm going to go to the back. Go ahead.
Can I ask just about COVID?
They're gonna whoop her.
Your State of the Union speech. What's going to be different this year? And is the president going to address the yawning gap between vaccinations in the developed world and in the less developed world?
As you know, I'm not going to get ahead of the president's speech tomorrow.
She's almost late for her spanking.
COVID, the president has talked about many times of how we've been able to get the economy going, and a lot of that was because of how the president handled COVID, of how he was able to push forward an American Rescue Plan that was able to put forward a comprehensive plan to get shots in arms. And because of the work that this president has done, we are.
She's trying to turn her humanity off just to try and make it through the rest of this press briefing. She just all of a sudden went dead behind the eyes.
I'm not going to get into what the president's going to talk about or say and on any particular issue. We've kind of given the kind of a little bit of the themes a little bit here. You heard from Brian. Just not going to get ahead of the president from here. I'm going to go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry.
She should be working at McDonald's after this performance.
The president look to any past State of the Union addresses for inspiration as he crafts this one. He's worked with some great orators over the years.
So, not going to go into his process. What I can say is the president was a senator for 36 years. He was vice president for 8 years. He has been president for 2. He knows how this process is. He knows how it works. He knows how important tomorrow is going to be.
Then why isn't he better at what he's doing then?
Is going to sound like a Joe Biden State of the Union speech. So I can.
That's what we're expecting.
On that, just not going to get beyond that. Go ahead, the person behind you.
Thank you. So, Karine, we know of these few balloons that had flown in the past, the one, of course, from last week. You say the relationship is up to China going forward. Should the expectation be for the American public that that this is it with balloons then? Or is it that this could potentially happen again in the future? And if that's the case, that the standard procedure going forward is wait for it to get over water and then it'll be shot down?
I'm not going to get into any specifics of what might happen next or hypotheticals from here. I'm just not going to do that. What I can say is, as you've heard me say, there is a
even their own blue team reporters don't even believe them anymore.
Program that we have that has been going on for some time, that Congress certainly was briefed on back in last August, but just not going to get into hypotheticals from here.
And then one more. There's bipartisan calls up on Capitol Hill as it relates to TikTok and the national security implications of it. You have Congressman Ken Buck saying, if you see this CCP surveillance balloon scares you, wait until you hear about TikTok. Senator Michael Bennet had recently called on the CEOs of Apple and Google to remove TikTok from their devices, from their Google Play stores and Apple Play Store. Does the administration believe that TikTok is a national security threat, and does it believe that those apps should be removed from phones?
So look, the president, the Biden administration, more broadly, has never allowed TikTok on the White House devices. Other federal agencies have similar restriction. We have been clear about our concerns on apps like TikTok, and so look, we are focused on the challenges of certain countries, including China, seeking to leverage digital technologies and Americans' data in ways that present unacceptable national security risk. I'm just not going to get ahead of it. As we know, there's a review currently happening, but we take this very seriously. And as I said, the Biden administration has never allowed TikTok on the White House devices.
Is it a national security risk?
Again, I'm just not going to. There's a review happening by CFIUS. I'm just not going to get ahead of that.
Thanks, Fred.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Why you continue to discriminate against me? Is there any reason why you want to against me and other colleagues in the briefing room?
They muted the feed again so we couldn't hear Simon. Nothing to see here. They just censored that one question that Peter Parker said, or whatever, the guy who was looking a little rough today. And then Simon screaming over everyone to just try and get a question out there because they never call on him. And then again at the end there. And then totally deny, like not even deny, but just look over all those poll numbers. Multiple times they were saying about how the economy's trash, Americans are not happy because of it. How do you guys keep telling us that things are going so great? Record-breaking numbers, great. And then she's just doesn't say anything at all. And then the guy's like, well, Americans don't really approve of this. All of them. Blue team, red team, no team. Everyone says old man Walter should just go find something else to do. Go find himself a nice rocking chair somewhere in Florida and just sit there and shut the hell up. And then she just looks over it. Well, he's the greatest of all time forever and will always will be. Get out of here with that nonsense. All that nonsense. She might as well say, well, I love balloons. Kills me. Drops me right here. Alright. Leon, seems like journalist is just silenced. Yeah. So much for freedom of speech, so much for freedom of press. And then half the stuff she said, she was like, oh, well, you guys reported, as if the reporters are the source of information beyond the White House, the Pentagon, the intelligence community that she was just referring to. What, they have to watch the news to know what's going on in the country? The leaders of the country should not be watching the news to understand what's going on with the country. Like, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. I mean, I'm just a hooligan, so, it's not my place. Anyways, it's not over yet. We have more. We have, let's see, a short video on an article. Massive fire breaks out in Chicago Heights factory. Now, I will say that there's a lot of people speculating that this is a food processing plant or a food distribution plant or something like that. But from what I can find is that it is a scrapyard connected to a warehouse that stores furniture and fabric, supposedly. I don't know. But I will have the links for everything we cover today in the description after we are no longer live. That way, and I encourage you guys, to go research it yourselves and come to your own conclusions, because look at how the White House is, right? You just can't believe everything you're told. So here we are. We're going to be moving forward. All right, so this is an article, but we're not going to read the article because we're just going to watch the video.
Fire in Chicago Heights, and Sky Fox just arrived to the scene. Let's toss it to Derek Peters in the chopper for more information.
Channel Q, we already covered that.
Here in South suburban Chicago Heights, dealing with a massive blaze here. This is now raised to the second alarm level. The first alarm went out over an hour ago here. It was initially reported as being a scrapyard fire in a nearby scrapyard here at 1101 Washington Avenue. In that time, it has obviously spread to this massive industrial style building. A lot of details still to put together here. The nature of what was being stored inside this building, injuries, all of that. We are still working for details here. Judy is on the way here, and we will continue to bring you updates here throughout the morning. Raisha, back to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, hold on a second, because there's another video they have that explains a little bit more.
That extra alarm fire broke out just after 6 o'clock this morning and burned all morning long. Joni is live with breaking news and details on this. Joni, what can you tell us?
Hi, Sylvia. Well, officially, this fire is struck, though Chicago Heights Fire Department stays on the scene to chase hotspots, and it appears that they found some, because we still have some smoke rising above the building that was on fire. We also have 9 or 10 ComEd and Nicor gas crews on the ground. We're told that they were here to shut off service in the area. This fire started at a large facility in this industrial area of Chicago Heights, and then it took off, sending waves of smoke above the south suburbs. A Chicago Heights spokesperson confirms the building belongs to Morgan Lee. That's a third-generation family-owned business. According to their website, they just completed the purchase of the 230,000 square foot production facility. It is 13 acres of space.
Press 1 if you think it's insurance fraud.
Sending dozens of crews and equipment from multiple surrounding suburbs. They raised ladders on trucks all around the property and hit it with hoses on the ground. It appeared multiple spots were burning at once. We also have some dramatic video from the ground. Michael Powers shot this at 6:25 a.m. A large volume of orange flames building and spreading. It seems there was a lot of material feeding that fire. Down the street, there's a brick building that has been the focus most recently. They've been shooting water at the roof line of it, but it appears
fire started multiple locations at once. Building was just purchased. Obviously expensive property because it's commercial property. I don't know.
Surrounding that particular business, but officials have not said whether they've been impacted or if this fire did spread. Reporting live in Chicago Heights, I'm Joni Lum. Now back to you.
All right, thank you for that.
Wow. So that's that for the Chicago fire. I don't know. But I wanted you guys to know, that happened. I know that's not exactly huge news, especially if you don't live in Chicago. You may be saying, why is that relevant? Because I'm seeing this circulate all over the internet as this is another food processing thing, or this is another food distribution thing. And although those things are happening mysteriously, this is not that. And so don't fall for the propaganda. As I said, these links will be in the description. I encourage you guys to go research everything on your own. Really, we're just kind of out here squashing fake news, I guess. So we're going to be moving forward to our final deal here. Let's see, is this a tweet? Yeah, it's a tweet. So this is urgent calls to evacuate after massive train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Again, I've never heard of that place, but apparently it's in Ohio. Reports on officials warning of possible major explosion. So we're going to be moving on to that. I don't know if you guys see that on the side there, Civil War trending on Twitter. It's not good.
This morning, this small town in Ohio on edge after a disastrous train derailment a mile long. Multiple explosions caused massive fires, lighting up the night sky, burning for hours. Overnight, officials pleading with hundreds of people within a mile of the fiery accident to evacuate, saying the potential explosion of a rail car could launch deadly shrapnel up to a mile. NTSB investigators are now on scene piecing together what caused the derailment.
We obtained 2 videos which show preliminary indications of mechanical issues on one of the rail car axles.
The National Transportation Safety Board has recovered the data recorder on board, hoping it sheds light on how 50 cars carrying a variety of materials, including vinyl chlorine, a hazardous gas, derailed Friday night, bursting into flames, potentially sending toxins spewing into the air. EPA crews are testing the air and water regularly. Although the water is discolored, local officials saying it's safe to drink.
And Alex will stay on this story for us, Rebecca.
Okay. The dude at the end scared me a little bit. Caught me off guard. So that's that as far as breaking news. I've pretty much covered it all. Everything except for the goofy Grammys, which if you go anywhere on the internet, that's all you're going to see is a bunch of people all in red. Can't tell which what they are exactly. But it's not good. But like I said earlier, we're not going to get into the Grammys. We know that they're trash bags. We know what they do in Hollywood. We know that all of those things are just humiliation rituals for their cult. That's what it is. That's why they dress all goofy. That's why they look like clowns. That's why they go out in public and act like they look all pretty. They had Doja Cat the other day all in gemstones, painted all red and stuff. Does that look comfortable? No. Does anybody wake up and go, oh, I want to look like that today? No. It's part of a humiliation ritual that the cult requires. Because when you have all the money and the power in the world, you can't buy your way into this stuff. So they need your soul. They need your humanity. They need your dignity. And part of that is to go out there and humiliate yourself and look like Britney Spears when she was shaving her head in public years and years ago when she, broke her MK Ultra brain training that she had going on, and now she's just a shell of a human being anymore. That's all it is. It's humiliation rituals for the cult. So why cover that? Why even acknowledge it? Everybody's like, oh my God, it's satanic. Yeah. Yeah. You see Forrest Gump moved to Greece. You know why that happened, right? You notice people don't post hashtag save our children anymore. You notice that just quietly died down. People don't even remember what that's about, but I remember. I remember, just like the riots, just like the people I see who support Antifa live streamers right now saying, God bless you, I'm so glad you're here. But 2 years ago, they were burning down federal buildings. I'm sitting here watching hooligans do that. I'm like, what are you doing? But I remember. I have it all documented. So we're going to keep shining light on all that stuff and all the dark areas as we can. And that's that. So that wraps us up today. I'm going to give you guys the spiel. And then we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance and we're going to wrap this up. Robert, Taco Bell is not meat. I agree. But I do jack all their Diablo. I went and got like another 50 packs yesterday. I had to make a quick stop. Anyways, we're not going to talk about that. You guys need to get your sauce game up. All right, hooligans. When you get a second, I need you to go to jeffmaclive.com. You can also find the link in the description of the video you're watching right now. The homepage has all of my links listed. You can find the link to join Gilded. Gilded is free. It's currently the best way to receive notifications for when and where we go live every single time we go live, no matter where we go live. You'll also receive notifications for important updates. There is a news board on there to keep you up to date with everything going on around the world. There's a ton of hooligans in there to hang out with every day, all day, to chat about pretty much whatever you want. So definitely join Gilded. Also on the JeffMAC Live homepage, you can find links to the merch store if you would like to grab some merch. We have shirts, hoodies, stickers, and coffee mugs. Everything is displayed in black and white or white and black, but if you find something you like, just click on that item to see all the colors that item comes in. I will be adding to the store. I have a ton of designs. I got busy over the weekend, so it didn't happen then, but I will be working on that, so keep an eye on the merch store. You can also find links on the JeffMAC Live homepage to PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, Stripe, Zelle, and Buy Me a Coffee if you would like to support what I do. There's also a link to the Amazon wish list if you would like to send me stuff. It is very easy to use. Anything you purchase directly from the list will be sent straight to me without having to send emails or come find information or anything like that. It's really simple and easy to use. Finally, there is links to the membership programs if you guys would like to join them on the homepage jeffmaclive.com. We have memberships for YouTube, Gilded, Discord, Odyssey, Rumble, and Twitch. So that's my spiel. Let's get ready for the Pledge of Allegiance. If you guys got Twitter, you should be following me on Twitter because I've been going ham, like 100 tweets a day, calling them out. Big time. I'm doing big things over on Twitter. Anyways, join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, hooligans. Well, that is that. We do not have anything else going on today. If something really active happens, of course, we will go live. Otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode of Coffee with Hooligans. At 9 p.m. tomorrow, we will be covering the State of the Union address or whatever it is. Old man Walter speaking to us gracefully. We'll just say that. We will be covering that since it is going to be at night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. I will see all of you hooligans there, or at least I hope so. I'm going to read through the chat really quick, and then we're going to be wrapping this up. PJ, what's up with the Taco Bell meat? Not good things, I'm sure. Alright, just want to make sure I got everyone. I appreciate you guys. Big shout out to everyone that made donations, joined the membership program, or purchased any merch. I appreciate all of you, and I would not be able to do this without you. So thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll see you on the next live. Until then, stand tall, shine bright, and that's a wrap.